In this video, I'm going to talk about the application of copyright laws to education. Many countries that have copyright law include in their laws an exception for the use of certain fragments of copyrighted works in education. For example, in Spain, the law of intellectual property, which is this one, has Article 32, which deals with quotations and reviews and illustrations for educational or scientific research purposes, which states that it is lawful to include in one's own work fragments of other people's works of a written nature or isolated works, as long as they are published works and are used for quotation or for analysis, commentary, or critical judgment. Such use may only be made for teaching or research purposes to the extent justified and indicating the source and the name of the author of the work used. This is further developed. Here, for example, teachers of formal education and taught in centers in the Spanish educational system and university staff may use the work. And here it says that it can be done as long as it is not remunerated, that they are works already disclosed, that they are not textbooks or manuals, except that it is a public communication in which copies cannot be made, that they are fragments, that the name of the actor and the source are included, except in those cases in which it is impossible. A small fragment of a work is understood as an extract or portion quantitatively insignificant in relation to the whole of the work. And then you will not need authorization from the author either. If you have to work on copyright in Spain and you are teachers, I recommend you to read it because I am not a lawyer either, and draw your own conclusions about what can be done and what cannot be done. I also have the example of the United States, where in Article 107 of the copyright law has limitations of the exclusive rights, the fair use, the appropriate use, where it says that, and this is even broader, that is, in fact, there has been litigation on the subject and they refer you to the jurisprudence to see what you can do and what you cannot do, because it says that the use will depend on whether the use is commercial or non-profit educational. The nature of the protected work, the amount and how important it is within the protected work of the piece we use, the effect that use could have on a potential market. Here we have, in this educational world, for example, has each of these things explained. For example, if a transformation has been made and it has been used in non-profit classes, it is much more improbable than if it is something very extensive, it has been copied, as it had some profit motive in the middle. And here we have some lines that have been compiled in the United States for educators, because you can usually copy a single chapter of a book, an excerpt from a book that combines illustrations but is no more than 2 pages or 10%, a poem of 250 words. A single graph or diagram from a book or newspaper. You can't make too many copies of the work, of whatever we are copying, so that people don't buy books or newspapers. You can't use the same paper more than 1 semester or course. Well, there is a set of guidelines in the United States. If you live in any other country, you should look up the intellectual property or copyright law, it depends on what it's called, and see if there is, which for example in France there is, in the UK there is, a section for educational and non-commercial use of materials without having to ask permission from the owner of the copy.